We're live. Good morning, party people. Welcome to the NonProphet podcast, which I think that's a name we're going to have to change. With your host, Jake, and Eric, hosts Jake and Eric. What is it?
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Are you talking about something today? Are you talking about the Zeitgeist? Do you know what a Zeitgeist is, Eric?
No.
Let me read you the definition.
I feel like I kind of should, but I don't.
Got my stream up, don't you?
Yeah, I get it.
So Zeitgeist in Merriam-Webster is the general intellectual, moral, and cultural climate of an era. But a lot of times it gets described or is used to describe the conglomerations of religions and their ideologies across large time frames in history. So when we're discussing the Zeitgeist, we're talking about analyzing the bulk of religious texts together as a set of works that has influenced culture. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So,
although I thought it was just like a ghost.
No, Zeitgeist means like we live in
Geist
this.
means ghost or spirit.
Sure. So Zeit means like spirit of the era, and in the context that usually gets used in, it's like Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and what other large influential religions that have influenced, modern man or even pre-modern civilizations up to this point. So Zeitgeist. Yeah. And I want to talk about someone in particular.
Okay.
I want to talk about the Zeitgeist of Hermeticism and Hermes Trismegistus, or better known as Satan.
Okay.
You've heard me talk about him a bit. Do you know his origins?
I mean, I know the mainstream.
What do you think the mainstream is? Like, what is the mainstream of him?
Of Satan?
Yeah. Like, tell me what you... Because I have studied so much now that I have kind of detached from the public view of what this may...
I mean, a mainstream in my mind would just be like fucking Hollywood version. You know what I mean? That's what most people are going to believe.
What's the Hollywood version? I'm honestly asking you to describe it.
Cast out angel. Cast out of heaven for basically starting shit and being a bastard. Or the other one is for not wanting to follow the rules.
Interesting.
And depending on which way you look at it, either he's a good guy or a bad guy. I mean, Hollywood would like to tell you the devil's good for obvious reasons.
I like that. That's a good rundown.
They've literally created TV shows showing Lucifer as a super charming, happy-go-lucky, lovable guy that falls in love with a police detective. And,
that's another name.
You know what I mean? Like, they create shows like that all the fucking time. They like romanticize Satan.
Well, I'm here to propose that Satan's been around for quite some time. He has established a zeitgeist around the world, and that he's gone by many names, and I'm going to give you some of his names today. I do not claim that he is a god. I may refer to him as a god or a demigod or something like that, but at the end of the day, I think he's just a powerful entity who's real. I don't believe in something called the Antichrist. I do not believe he is the Antichrist. If I had to guess, if I really had to guess what Satan is and why he shows up all over our ancient texts, is because he's been around. This is a person or an entity that clearly can time travel or reincarnate at will and embody new people.
Okay. That's
Um,
creepy.
well, it's just he's all over the text. So, origin identity: Hermes Trismegistus may be associated with the god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. The Greeks in recognize these guys as the same person, and the Romans called him Mercury. But I also believe that we're talking about the same persons, maybe even Shiva and Amun Ra from Egypt, and they all have this same message that they try to get across repeatedly.
Which is?
Okay, so I've been reading out of something called Asclepius, which is Hermetic texts, talking to like one of his someone he mentors. And Hermes, this is ancient Greek, is telling them that humans have forsaken God, so we need to be wiped out and reset, and it's inevitable, and that it's our fault, and it's going to keep happening.
Okay.
But I think that's a lie. I think that this is an interesting one. So I like to think about Hermes Trismegistus as this really long-lived human who lived too long and has seen the wrath of mankind. But I don't think he's some like progenitor, like pre-human god that like has real power over humans in the way, say, Christianity or Judaism would say he does. He's good at mimicking some of this stuff. He really can create cataclysms and use some really sophisticated technology and time travel. So I tend to think that he's a time traveler who's reset mankind several times. And he might be fairly recent in human history. Because if you get to the really old texts, like when you read texts that are pre-Hermes, pre-Thoth, it tells a different story. It tells a much more celestial story without his presence. And so I think that he's probably a more recent addition to the zeitgeist of mankind. And when I say recent, I mean pretty old, though, like 200, 400,000 years ago.
Okay.
Because we can date this guy back to... you can go back to the King's List. I'll pull that up, actually. I've shown you these before.
Yeah.
You can read through this King's List, but some of the kings... There's no Thoth in this one. Some of these kings ruled for like some ungodly amount of years, right? One of them says it was 36,000 years that they ruled for. And
the kings in general, as a whole, or one king?
One king, Thoth. This is his name. This is who I propose is Satan. His name's Thoth.
Okay.
I wonder if they got it in here anywhere. Kings. No. Tablets. Of course. So this guy, depending on which mythology that you look at, he does a few different things. First off, he tends to be around before and after cataclysms.
Right.
And he's often seen with particular kinds of objects. A lot of times he's attributed with holding an acorn. And some kind of...
we talked about him before.
Right. Some kind of staff. And he's like this receder. So he kind of like gives us our technology after each reset. But this guy's always around, and there's always these documents about this guy being around. There's documents of other ones being around as well. These other entities, but the more recent you get into ancient texts, like the more recent they become, when you start getting up to around Amun Ra. Let's look up Amun Ra. That's a good one. What? Oh, moon. Here we go. Amun Ra. Of course, he's telling me all this weird stuff. Anyways, so there's a message you get here a lot from this particular guy. There we go. Amun. First off, we'll get back to some of those pictures. The eye, the all-seeing eye, the singular all-seeing eye. This is around the time. So this is around 2350 BCE, and this was in Egypt, right? So this guy's, 4,500 years ago, was running around telling everyone that he is the only one that they should worship. So that's why I say that the Zeitgeist has changed in recent time. That this guy's been around for a long time, but he wasn't the only god. And then you start looking at these texts, and around 4,500 years ago, you start seeing this concept of monotheism. And he's the center of all of this monotheism. Let me explain a little bit about this. You know how we say at the end of a prayer, we say Amen?
Yeah.
Look at his name.
Amen.
Yeah. So guess who we are praising when we pray and we say Amen?
Him.
Yeah. Ooh, tricky son of a bitch, isn't he? He's tricky, isn't he? Right?
Very.
Because that certainly is not God. Amun Ra was not God. He was a guy, right? Like he was a lesser deity, a demigod, like maybe someone really powerful in our eyes, like someone who had really advanced technology that everyone else didn't have and could create wonders and miracles and stuff. Just like this Thoth guy, just like Hermes, just like Mercury, just like Shiva, just like all these other people all over the planet. Now here's the thing that gets me. So I'll stop for a second and let you process. But here's the thing that gets me about this guy. Is how is he all over the freaking planet all the time? And he's kind of around the planet at the same time in different places with different names. Right? But it's clearly the same person or someone with the exact same message that's just tailored to that region. But it's so specific that to me it feels like it's the same individual. And when I say individual, I mean that, like an individual. Like a dude. Like running around, starting trash. Like walking through pyramids and going and like putting on a new mask and being like, and having his like followers going, all right, you ready, buddy? You got to go out there and you gotta go play your magic and stuff in front of them. Not so dissimilar than like a Taylor Swift, so to speak, So yeah. So, is this guy a clone? Is he teleporting from pyramid to pyramid? Is he all of the above? What's going on? What do you think?
I mean, fuck, it's hard to say. I mean, either he's literally just a figure, a means of, like either a cloak that many different people and rulers have put on in order to evoke a certain response. Either that or
like an archetype,
an alien. I don't know.
Like an archetype.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Because I don't know if this guy really existed or not. If it was several different people. I actually used to have this old theory. I've kind of come back on it now, where when they discuss in the Old Testament, there's a book in the Old Testament called Numbers, part of the Torah, and it talks about how old everybody is And like it talks about how Methuselah is the oldest. He was like 980 years old or something like that. And Adam was really old, and Moses was really old. You know, that whole line of early Jewish prophets and family members. They all lived like almost 1,000 years. But they only have their last name, right? They don't have a first name and a last name. So sometimes I wonder if it isn't just a family lineage that was written down. And
I mean, it's possible, right?
sure, I do think, but see, it's hard for me even on that one anymore because I feel like human DNA has been messed with so many times that it is possible that humans lived a lot longer, you know?
I mean, yeah.
We don't really have the scientific capability to go back through our DNA and look at it and say, hey, we know when this modification was made and when this modification was made. We can kind of guess a little bit, but most of the guesses are really long time ago, like not a couple thousand years ago, you know, like hundreds of
Right.
thousands of years ago, millions of years ago, maybe. As soon as you get right outside the mainstream science about, you know, Darwinian evolution and a more practical approach using modern like AI and mathematics to discuss how Moore's law and systems evolve, you find out humans are much older. We're far older than primates. Like primates just could not catch up to us. There's no way, unless their DNA gets modified, there's no way, shape, or form they're ever even going to come close to being a human being. They're so far away in the evolutionary chain. So you can kind of look back and say, like, the last 10,000 years, like if you go back to the Younger Dryas or even the most recent flood, you know, the Noah story and 6,000 years ago, that humans are almost identical. You know, like there's very little change from humans, almost none.
Right.
Right? So we could go back that far and we could say that this like whole Lucifer guy was probably just like real similar to us. But like, let's say he really could be 2, 3, 400,000 years old. He would still basically be a human unless he really got to work on genetics. Let me give you a.
I mean,
Go ahead.
if you take the sci-fi approach to it, right? Like
I mean, you have to.
he's super advanced, right?
Yeah, you have
I
to.
mean, shit. I mean, I'm sure some super advanced being could probably prolong his life indefinitely, really. I mean, given enough technology and
There you go.
understanding.
There you go. There you go. Okay. So let's put a little thought experiment on this. If you're a guy who shows up across time, like a large scale of time for human civilization, so you know, like let's say that modern man has lived or has been around in some way, shape, or form, say like the last 500,000 years.
Yeah.
And we can be conservative about their technology and stuff. We don't have to say that 500,000 years ago they had the like, you know, the city of Atlantis and stuff, and there was flying cars and crap. You don't need to go that wild, right?
Right.
Let's say that modern man's been around for like the last 25, 50,000 years, because that seems to be a little bit more realistic. If you want to date pyramids and stuff back, say 25,000 years ago, and they were really sophisticated, and there's been a couple of, you know, real catastrophic events, or just even humans just forgetting about their past, and there was a different line of technology.
Well, either that or it really stands to reason that technology and advancement, for the most part, would be kept from the masses.
But it's also, it just may not be linear. Like, we don't even need to get into conspiracy theory right now. I'm trying to stay away from that. I just want to stick to this guy. So I'm just saying that in, say, the last 50,000 years, we did develop some fairly sophisticated technology, and we could build pyramids and move them around and stuff. And however you want to attribute that, you go ahead. But I'm not making any claims about that. I'm just saying that there was some high technology, not 500,000 years ago, not 100,000 years ago, but like 25, 50,000 years ago. This is becoming common, accepted beliefs. Like this is not really right. Like I said, as soon as you get outside that dogma, you know, the Randy Carlsons, the Graham Hancocks, the Charted X's, the Johannes's, they all believe this stuff, and they're gaining serious academic support. Does that make sense?
Okay. Sure.
Okay. So let's just say that he's been fucking around with us for the last 50,000 years. Like he clearly has, like he's clearly been messing with us. Now, the thought experiment I want to propose is that, like, let's say that he has to be a time traveler of some sort. He has to either be incredibly old or time.
Well, it could be some sort of stasis as well.
Right, but
it could be linear in time, but some sort of stasis technology.
Okay, so you don't think that time travel is necessary for this guy? You think
no?
So then, what do we got here? Like stasis, cloning.
I don't know about
teleportation.
Well, I think probably stasis would be the easiest way to explain it.
A lot of people think those pyramids do have that kind of abilities. That they have those abilities. That they have.
Possibly they do.
That they're multi-use, but one of them was most certainly like this harmonic balance where you can kind of keep matter in a state of balance where it doesn't. It starts to bump against the laws of entropy, right? Like a human's supposed to break down, but if you have the right amount of energy and frequency, you can slow that law of entropy down to such a point where it comes to like a crawl that's almost indistinguishable between entropy and no entropy. You understand what I'm saying?
You would also need to have a way to reverse any cellular damage, right?
Well, okay, good. Ooh, I like that. Okay, so then you're talking about sophisticated bioengineering, maybe some cloning, maybe some like body consciousness trading stuff.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Either he's trading in his body for a new one, which is probably the easiest to fathom, really. Like an energy transfer technology.
Right.
And then stasis. So if he were to put himself in a stasis and then when he comes out he just, body snatcher, then there you go.
So I kind of believe in maybe there's a combination of these things occurring. Like what if, because I really am starting to believe that we've got clones and that the ability to clone these people has been around for a long time. Or at least some sort of genetic engineering where you can take properties from someone's DNA and move them into like a new egg, right? Like, or engineer the egg from, some kind of advanced biology we already have this stuff. It's just like real expensive and hard to do,
Yeah, but for somebody with unlimited,
right.
Somebody or an organization with unlimited resources.
Yeah, why not just pop out a Taylor Smith every 60, 70 years?
Very easy to keep things quiet, too. It's actually like people are, oh, you wouldn't be able to keep that secret. Like, yeah, of course.
Everything's secrets. Everything's fucking secrets. The world's built on secrets. I mean, here, let me pull up some of my props.
Lies. The world is built on lies and secrets. It always has been.
Let me pull up some of my props. We got Hermes' freaking great eye right here, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay. It's on our money. Like...
But it's just as simple as
you got the eye of Ra on our money. You've got.
It's very easy to make people believe what you want them to believe, and easily disprove what you want disproven. Just based on making something popular belief, which is actually fairly easy to do if you know what you're doing and how to go about it.
Totally.
If you have the resources, you can literally mold humanity. Large groups of people into a certain direction with just little nudges and little misinformation here, and just like literally it starts with children. Like if you want to steer people in general in a certain direction, all you need to do is change what they get taught. That's it.
Okay, we are digressing, but I agree with you when it comes to our education systems. Essentially, all of our large organizations and systems have been built on some form of dishonesty, and
they all dibble dabble in our education system too, which is fucking scary.
Oh, it's not just a dibble dabble; it's so deep.
Well, you know what I mean. I'm just being nice, I guess, but
no, I mean, I of any person, you're speaking to the choir, and that's why I kind of believe that it's more like when it comes to this thought experiment and what this person could possibly be, Like I said, I don't think there's such thing as the Antichrist. I think the Antichrist is like some kind of cloning and teleportation process where they will just like print a new Hillary Clinton or print a new Trump or Taylor Swift, depending on their needs. Like they have this battery of figures that they can create and mask, put out there. But you know, like in old ancient times, maybe they kind of like came out like dog-headed and stuff. Who knows? You know, like who knows? Maybe they had to put masks on them because they were incredibly charming, but they hadn't refined the technology to such a point that they could really do like perfect Taylor Swifts every time. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I kind of believe that it's not even necessarily one guy, but maybe someone who discovered this technology, found a way to like move their consciousness or consciousnesses from body to body and kind of cheat the life and death cycle. You understand?
Yeah, right. Now, once you've done that, I mean, you've broken the mold. You can't even fathom what somebody's goals are at that point.
Right.
That's
I mean, you kind of can.
No, I don't know, man. Like,
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
If you have a consciousness, a person, God, whatever you want to call it, that can basically live forever, I mean, the motives get very fuzzy.
Okay, good.
I mean, what
good.
At that point, what drives that entity? And also, it could explain, big gaps in hearing about that entity, because maybe, at some point he's just going to go in, hibernation and come back later and see if there's something that can spark his desires again. I don't know.
Okay, this is good. Let me back up just a little bit. So I want to go back to the root of Hermes Trismegistus. Okay. So Hermes Trismegistus, it means the third great king, or I've been king 3 times. Now, some people want to buy into more of like he was only king 3 times, but I think it more has to do with the Holy Trinity, and for some reason he likes to use that. And when I say he as an entity, I don't really mean a male or a female. In fact, Hermes is like the first hermaphrodite. Even though it was a man, he is that Baphomet figure, that Baal figure. The as above, so below is attributed to Hermes, like being a shapeshifter and having these powers. But of course, this is a later iteration, right? Like Hermes isn't the first. There's a bunch of other ones all over the place. And one of the first ones are something called the Emerald Thoth wrote the Emerald Tablets, some like 50,000 years ago. Now, the Emerald Tablets really talk about honor and duty and, honoring God and being like a pure soul, and how when you die, what the afterlife is like. And it's very similar to some Abrahamic ideology as well. And I'm not going to argue with some of this. Like, I believe in some fundamental ethics. So I'm not here to argue the good and the bad of this right now. That's not what I'm trying to get into. What I'm trying to get into is the change that this guy has had from the beginning to recently. He seemed like he started off as kind of a good guy. It sounds like he was hanging out with humans for some like 30, 35,000 years. One of his first iterations around. And he really seemed like maybe he enslaved us a little bit. But like that wasn't really his intention.
Yeah, but you almost have to do that to protect people. I mean, really, when you think about it.
You can't go giving people nukes and then not put regulations over them.
Humans in general are kind of cattle, and you really need to kind of control them to keep them from destroying themselves.
Correct.
I mean, that's why our society is the way it is now. Okay. I mean, just look at all the control devices everywhere. You're being controlled every step of the way. The whole, land of the free is a fucking joke for anybody that's intelligent enough to actually look at it objectively. Like, give me a fucking break. We're controlled more than anybody else.
Okay, so now here we get to like the next chapter of Thoth, right? I believe that the tale of Atlantis is far more of like a cautionary, one of the first cautionary tales about hubris of mankind. It's just repeat in the zeitgeist, right? You know, you kind of always have this hubris, like the Tower of Babel. You know, you try to get together and make one world language, get everyone together, and then God comes down and blasts the tower down, right? Like, no, I'm going to scatter you all in the winds, and you're all going to speak different languages. Like, it's another one of those catastrophic, apocalypse stories. So, but one of the first ones is the city Atlantis. Like, you know, they have this hubris and they have this big war, and a couple of great cities get sunk, and then Thoth has to like restart mankind, and then he comes back as Ra, and he gets a little nastier that time around. His enslavement gets a little bit tighter, and then there's something called the Pyramid Wars, or like the Second Pyramid Wars, and it looks like there were some like big nukes that went off, and maybe even there was this other catastrophe called, from the Younger Dryas, where there was a bunch of floods. And whether or not it's attributed to him scientifically or not, he likes to attribute it to himself. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, he repeatedly comes back to mankind and says, "See what I did last time? I'll do it to you again." You know? So whether or not it's a trick or a lie, he likes to take credit for these things.
Okay.
And it seems like after that particular one, the Younger Dryas, after the Pyramid Wars, he chills out a little bit. He comes back as Hermes. He goes Thoth. He's a pretty decent guy. And then he comes back as Amun-Ra, and he kind of cracks down. And then he comes back as Hermes, and he chills out a little bit again. He's like, all right. I like glassed the shit out of you guys last time. I'm going to try and help you out. We're going to do it a little bit differently this time. And then it happens again. Like, whatever it is, humanity pisses him off, and he goes, nah, I'm wiping you guys out again. And I think that's actually what was called the Mud Flood. I think that was Hermes, or there may have been multiple iterations. Now, here's the thing: is that the closer you get in from about the last 50,000 years, like the first iteration was like somewhere between 25,000 and 35,000 years before he reset us. Then the next one, like the Younger Dryas, was like 12,000 years, right? And then the next one, the Biblical Flood, was like 6,000 years. And then the next one after that, the Mud Flood, and some of this nuking and stuff, it sounds like there's a couple, we're every couple thousand years. So he keeps getting pissed off faster and faster. Like, these cycles keep getting shorter. Like, the cycles, like, he had to shorten our lifespan, or otherwise, like, these cycles, like, come up on him too fast. Like, we figure shit out too fast. He had to shorten our lifespans, and these cycles get shorter.
I mean, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Well, I mean, and some of this is just, like, so well documented, it's hard to get around it. Unfortunately, the Old Testament and a lot of the supporting documents, they're so well recorded over those time periods that some of this stuff just happened. Now, you can argue over, like I said, whether or not the surnames were, a family line that lasted 1,000 years. Yeah. Or an individual who lasted this long. But so you got to accept one or the other. Either people lived a long time, or we were genetically modified, right? Like, there isn't really any in between stance. You can't accept this old block of history. Take these documents and say this, and then go, oh, but I believe in Darwinism, and I also think that humans were fucking stupid 12,000 years ago. You just can't hold them both. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they have a record of all these kings and stuff who lived so freaking long, and humans were ruling over these periods and in these regions, and it's really well documented. So it had to happen,
Yeah, I see your point. I do see your point.
So then when you start applying this, like, Taylor Swift clone to each one of these each one of these zeitgeists, or this overarching zeitgeist over the last, 10, 15,000 years, it's like, dude's had some, like, wild philosophy changes, or at least the people who have the power, or the nuke switches, The people who really have the nukes, who really have the satellites, who really have the biological technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like their order, their secrets keep changing, and it seems like they keep getting nastier. More dehuman. Because I really feel like we were given some really thorough chances before we blew ourselves up. Like really, 35,000 years is the longest recorded stretch of mankind without any major catastrophes.
Is that really?
I mean, then after that, there's Younger Dryas, which you got about 12,000 years. Then you got the biblical floods, which is 6,000 years. Then after that, you got the mud flood, which is like 2,000 or 3,000 years, which would lead us up to present time, which is you're looking at about another like 1,500, 2,000 years.
Okay.
Which would mean we're about due for a reset next, like either between now and the next couple hundred years.
No, hopefully not. But what's your reasoning? I mean,
right. I'm just going down a logical path here, actually a very well educated and researched thought experiment to this
has
Zeitgeist.
A tendency to repeat itself.
Well, it does,
that's just kind of how it is.
But not identically. It's not identical. There's changes. There's definitely changes in each cycle. They have new power structures and new technologies and like different, like they're set up different. We live longer. We live shorter. Our trees are bigger. There's giants. Then there's not giants. There's dinosaurs. There's not dinosaurs. It's cold and then it's warm. It's different every time.
Yeah.
Like in this era, there is not going to be any documentation of an ice age. Like you're not going to go back and carbon date on the next era and go like, oh, that last age was cold. Like it will be documented. You see what I mean? So the next wave will look back and go, oh, there was this like 2,000 year period where the planet was really warm, and it looked like the magnetic field was kind of weak compared to previous times. Like they'll eventually get to that technology where they can see this shit again. You feel?
What do you mean? Can't we see it now?
Well, we can't look back on this era. We can only document this era. We're not going to be looking back. We can't look back at ourselves and the structures we've built today, but we can kind of evaluate what the next generation will look back at us like. You understand?
Okay, I got you.
And like it wasn't like this has not been a cold era of man. It's been a warm, wet era of man.
Right.
And like the South Pole was really cold. So like if someone looks back from the future, they'll go, oh, look, South Pole was really cold. There's all this like shit buried underneath it. And maybe they'll come to the same conclusion that we did in this era. We leave it the fuck alone. Like that shit's, we're going to make a treaty and no one goes down there and messes with it. And maybe they'll go like that, they'll go do the same thing again. Be like, in these previous areas, they dug up this stuff and it got us everyone destroyed. So we're not going to do it. Whatever it is. But you get what I'm saying. There's going to be this continuation of the Zeitgeist. There's no reason to think it would change, like at least that dramatically, because it has not before. There are changes, but it's very possible that mankind will come back again after this cycle and be like, depending on what kind of cataclysm we have. It looks like right now it may even be hotter and wetter on the next cycle. You feel?
Okay.
And there may be more of mankind populating the North and South poles rather than the equator. And then you have mankind like kind of further in its age as it gets better at exploring closer to the equator because it's more hostile and desolate. That they go, oh wow, there's a bunch of people who used to live here. You feel me?
Yeah, man, I feel like that happens all the fucking time now.
That's what I'm saying. So, I feel like we're starting to set the stage for what the next cycle will see. And like soon we will have this new like receiver come up and start talking about like, this is what you guys are doing wrong. This is why we're going to blow you up. This is how the next cycle is going to look. And this is how you have to. And so when you guys dig this shit up next time, these are rules, And they do it, and they become the established rules for the next cycle. So, like, they're planning the next cycle already. Who knows? Maybe they have the next 2 cycles planned out. We don't know what kind of time frames these 200,000-year-old organizations plot and plan. Like you said, it's hard to know. It's hard to know what you would think if you lived 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years. You know, like, what if you're
It's extremely difficult. I mean, I can't even fathom that. I mean, what becomes important to you?
That's what I wonder. It's actually like the deep part of that thought experiment is that's what I wonder. You know what I think about that? Like, my loose belief system on that is?
What?
It's very Tolkien. It's very Lord of the Rings.
Okay, so go ahead. What is it?
So, do you know the fundamentals of? Actually, I'll just go over the fundamentals. It doesn't take very long. So there's 3 ages in Lord of the Rings, and if you read all the books, there's the Silmarillions, and it's kind of like about the start of mankind, and there's a lot like magic's really high, and angels and humans and all these different beings interact, and it kind of has this resemblance to real old world history on Earth, where there were giants and big trees, and kind of like more magic in the world. You know, without trying to specify what magic is, I'm just going to leave it at that. We can go into that another time. You can watch one of my older podcasts on magic. But that, and as the Earth kind of calms down, so to speak, and things start to normalize, ecosystems solidify, you have like a little less magic in the world on the next stage. But there are these entities from the previous age of this high magic that start becoming bitter about the way mankind operates. So this is really interesting. When you compare Sauron and Morgoth from the Tale of Lord of the Rings, you have these entities who are like a fractal of God, right? But they're not God themselves. They don't have this ability to create. They kind of only have this ability to corrupt. And each age, they get banished, but it kind of resets mankind. Like this war is so bad with this entity that it essentially resets mankind. He does so much devastation each time, and that the devastation that he wroughts is also what gives him his power, right?
Okay.
And then he has to kind of go into hiding, go into his regeneration chamber, right?
Okay.
Right? And plan for that next age. And then, as mankind inevitably does, they dig up this old technology, this old esotericism. They start becoming high man again, and they start doing awful things to each other, which then kind of recharges him, and he comes back, and it lets him get a grip over mankind again. Right? And every iteration, he becomes more and more desperate to regain control. Because we fight back nastier and harder every time. It's like this, almost like a time loop. That's why sometimes I like attribute it to a time traveler. Right. So let me digress for just a moment.
I can see how you would think that.
Let me digress for just a moment and discuss something.
But it could be more linear. Like, I feel like time travel is almost like a forward and back sort of thing. Whenever I hear time travel, I automatically assume it's forward and back.
No, that's fine. I do agree with you that it's forward and back. So let me.
But it makes more sense if it's more linear and it's just.
So this is. I'm going to digress and it's going to get wild for just a moment, but I promise I'll tie it back in. Okay.
Okay.
So Thoth writes in one of the very first attributed written works, is called these things called the Emerald Tablets that are supposed to be written in like copied in 6000 BC, but they've been around for a really long time. And this artifact has been lost, but they were copied a bunch of times. Okay, so one of our very first ancient texts that I do like to take in holistically when I discuss these texts. And he talks about this place. Thoth talks about this place called the Halls of Amenti, and he talks about how he's been to the Halls of Amenti, and he's traversed space and time, and it made him kind of go crazy. And
I could see how.
And he walked amongst the gods, but he wanted to come down here and show us how to escape from that. And ultimately, this guy ends up becoming a bad guy, kind of like goes crazy over this. But his first iteration around, like let's say he did find a way to transcend time and space, and that he kind of just chooses different times to come down here And so what we see when we look back in time, and as we beam our satellites and our ground radar into the ground, we are starting to see, literally, like not in a metaphysical way, in a very real sense, we are collapsing wave functions of possibilities that this jerk has been messing with our history. And the way time travel, I have described time travel, seen it described to me by mathematicians and scientists, and I'm not too bad at this stuff myself, is that is kind of how it would look to us. There's only so much of these alternate realities that we can fit in to our model, right?
Okay.
There's only so much Earth. There's only so much digging we can do, but it's still really freaking big, and there's a lot of stuff to uncover. So we haven't really stopped uncovering this procedural generation of alternate timelines that this dude's been messing with. Wild, huh?
I mean, how do you figure?
Well, like let me give you an example.
Okay.
What if we dig up another spot that we haven't seen before, that doesn't and would not contradict other stories? Like literally, like let's say that.
Well, that happens all the time, though, doesn't it?
Hang on. This will make sense if
Okay.
we look at all these different ages, and we could like really, like, let's say, put this into a complex computer, and it like lays out like a 3 or 4 dimensional map that we could like really look at and analyze, where it's like, this is what was occurring at this time on this part of the world, and this was happening over here. And you could like kind of like follow people around doing their things and how they interacted with other cultures and stuff. You plot this out really good, and you got it really accurate. Now, there's more room to uncover new stuff that will not contradict that model, and it never will, right? And if it does for some reason, it will contradict it in a very soft way, like soft time travel, as in like teleportation from place to place and people being in different locations at different times and discussing, but not interacting, right? Like there will be no mathematical contradictions, but you can keep uncovering this stuff. And here's the thing, is that the math and what we're seeing now with LiDAR and all these things, that is exactly what is occurring. That's why we're seeing humans overlap with dinosaur fossils. The deeper we dig, the longer we see humans running around. This guy has like keeps going back further and further and further. He's tried all the different possibilities. He's tried them all. He's fucked with mankind for so long that once he got up there and once he transcended space and time, we're literally just uncovering all these different messes that this guy has created with mankind. Organization.
I could see how you would say that, but
and
there's other ways to look at it.
Fair, and it's also important to keep in mind that when I say him or this guy, it could be an organization, it could be a civilization, it could be an alien. Who knows? Maybe it's all of these things. Maybe this has happened a few times. Right. You know, like maybe there's been a few demigods who've come down here, maybe even interacted at some points. That there were times when there were multi-demigods running around fucking with us.
Right.
And they had wars over this place. Like they found that this is an escape from time and space. See where this goes real fast?
Yeah, I see your point.
Yeah, and it's hard to escape this as a logical conclusion. It's not that I want to delve into absolute madness, but it's hard to avoid it once you start looking at the real history and looking at history that continues to be uncovered. There's so much going on, right? Like it's endless.
Yeah, well, there is.
They just found some Amazonian civilization that's 10,000 years old. It was a high civilization with impressive technology just out in the middle of the Amazon. What happened? Did it get grown over? What kind of civilization was it? We don't even know. We haven't even had a chance to dig it up.
It doesn't take long. I mean, it literally takes like fucking 10 years for the fucking rainforest to grow over a civilization. Like,
But we can tell, we can look at the erosion of the stone. Our LiDAR has gotten so impressive that we can look at the growth and how deep the growth is. And it tells us that the Amazon rainforest has been sitting over the top of this city for 10,000 years. And that rainforest has been carbon dated to be much older. So it's that place was amidst this Amazonian jungle. Now, are we going to do better LiDAR studies and find out this was just at the top of something and there was other stuff down below it? How long did the civilization last? We don't know. And you know what?
Yeah.
It hasn't been decided yet because we haven't uncovered it. Mathematically, it's the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. There's no way to know until we dig it up. There's no way to know until we look out there deeper and see those planets and those stars. It's fundamental, as above, so below.
Yeah.
Which is, and this is what Hermes Trismegistus says: as above, so below. If the Heisenberg uncertainty principle applies to matter, and light and electrons and all this stuff are always in this state of superposition, so are the actual events. It's unavoidable. That's the only way the math works. Like, there is no perfect... See, this is an interesting thing about the way math and physics works when you take like a system, like just take a sphere and look at what's going on inside this sphere. And a real simple example of this is look at the sun. Kind of math would be required.
Say that again?
Look at our sun. Take our sun as an example. Put a sphere around it and try to mathematically predict, with really high accuracy or close to certainty on how the system of the sun is going to evolve, when it's going to explode, when it will start to expand, when it will run out of its fuel. It's almost impossible. You start bumping against infinity. You start getting to where the amount of energy required to describe that system, it takes that much energy and will hence influence that system itself. Right?
Okay.
Like, it would take all the power of the sun to describe how much in order to be able to predict the sun. So you'd have to consume the sun. Therefore, the experiment, you couldn't do the experiment. Isn't that wild?
That is kind of wild.
So if you wanted to go dig really fast and find all that stuff inside, because since this is general and it works and you can apply it universally, so if you were to too aggressively dig for this stuff, you would in turn disturb it and destroy it. And then that evidence would be gone. Wild. So there is no way to do this. We're stuck doing it this way. And higher amounts of energy and better radar and stuff like that is only going to add more entropy to this mess. It's not going to help.
So essentially, then, there is no knowing the past.
Correct.
Is what you're trying to say.
Correct. There is no way to know. That we can start getting better and better and better at it, but at some point, that approach will bring back fucking Sauron. I don't really know how else to say it. Bring back whatever any people call the Antichrist or the devil or Thoth or Hermes or whatever. He's fucking going to come back again. There's no way around it. He's too deeply rooted in the mathematics now. There's no way to get rid of him. You can get lucky. You can get lucky on one of these like just absolutely outlandish ways. This is interesting too. Okay, so this is like, you want me to go one step crazier, or do you want me to take a breath?
I mean... No, go ahead.
Okay, so you know why he doesn't want us digging this shit up, and why he's declared it esoteric over the ages?
Go ahead.
He ain't perfect. He made mistakes. He left clues that he can't get rid of.
I mean, that would stand to reason.
It's inevitable.
But that's provided that he even needs to keep it secret that he was around. And I'm not convinced that that's true.
He does, because he cannot create. He can only corrupt. He's not God.
Yeah, but
He's pretending to be.
Would he need... Okay, but why would he need to keep it secret? People will believe whatever you fucking tell them.
Well, because otherwise, if we can dig this stuff up and we can read it, if we can dig it up and read up as in snakes, then we can figure out the math on how to get rid of him.
Okay.
Because it is one of the possible futures that he screwed up so bad. He time traveled so far and got so bitter that he fucked up at some point. And what he had to do was enslave us to make sure that we didn't find his mistake. It's called the key to the universe. Pandora's box.
Maybe.
No, it is. I mean, that's what it is. Like, if you look through the old ancient text, that's what it is. That's what's described as Pandora's box. That his, like, bastard child is found, you know? And you kill it. And he can't come back. You feel me?
Okay, I got you.
You start seeing what I'm saying? You trap him.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's going to be a certain...
You find out the date and time he's in his chamber, and you teleport there, and you fucking catch him.
Right.
You fucking catch that fool.
Weaknesses to his plan.
He don't want you to have those weaknesses. He puts traps and booby traps and shit all over the place. He puts misconception and lies everywhere to make sure you don't find that. Missteps constantly. He's very devious, but not infallible. Humans are smart. We're crafty. We're resourceful. We always find it. And that's why he's got to wipe us out. It's a fight every goddamn time, man. Every time.
You're assuming that he's not human.
Huh?
You're assuming that he's not human.
No, I'm not assuming that. In fact, I would probably think that he is, to be honest. I would think he probably is human. As Mr. Smith says in The Matrix, only humans can come up with something insipidous as love. but it's a binary. We're also the only ones who can come up with something as insipidous as hate. Like the Ebens, these creatures that live some like 100,000 light years, not even 100,000 light years away. I think they live, I forget, not very far. Like let's say they live a couple hundred light years away, right?
Yeah.
They come visit us all the time, man. They drop crop circles and go, "You're enslaved. This is his name. Wake up. We can't fuck with you." Like it's against international law. Like we can't do it, but we're allowed to do this. We're allowed to leave artwork on your planet. Get it right, guys. You know? People have gone and lived with them before. People have lived with the Ebens. And fucking Lucifer don't like it. He does not like it. You know what he does, right? With our spaceships?
What?
He sends us out. He sends whole fucking civilization. He's sent whole civilizations out there, man. Lost in space. He's had us build intergalactic travel many times before. And he tricks us into going out into deep space and abandoning our home and leaving us out there to rot. He's done it. He's done this before. It's in the texts. It's in the stories. So he doesn't want us kicking it with those people out there. But remember, he has to deal with Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So if we've ever bumped into them before, he can't erase that. And they have. He can't erase their artwork. You know, he can't erase the Eben culture. He's not powerful enough. He can only corrupt. And they have not... He's not in their timeline. And it may be that has to deal with intergalactic law as well. Or he'll be destroyed. So, like, he can't go fuck with the Ebens, you know?
It's hard to say. I mean...
Yeah, that's when you kind of start getting out there, but there is proof that the Ebens have been here.
Definitely in the weeds.
There's a lot of proof that Ebens have been kicking it. Like, if there's proof of us interacting with intergalactic life or interstellar life, it's the Ebens. These Greys, they're here. They've been here. I don't know what capacity, but they've been around, man. There's just too much. There's just too much proof of it. You don't get all these like ancient crop circles and have them pop up all the time, always being attributed to these like non-CIA assets. You know what I mean? Like even they don't know. So yeah. Anyways, that's I feel like that's it. We'll leave it as mystery.
I mean, it is a mystery because there's like you can hypothesize all you want, and you can look at different evidence to support your theories, but it's all still just theories. None of us lived through it. So,
well, some of this are not. They're not theories. Let's end on this note. Let's clarify some things, where we can start attaching beliefs, even with just some common sense, and where we have to start leaving stuff as fantasy fiction. And first off, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is not a theory; it's a principle. It's a law of entropy. It's not the theory of entropy. Now, we can argue over whether or not these things are laws, but for the most part, this is just really hard to look out there anywhere in the universe and say that they're wrong. This is just the way time moves forward. And there is no way, no test or experiment. This is some of the most well-tested, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional physics that we have. So when we start talking about LiDAR, satellite imagery, if you can take that as a trusted source, then some of this is true, right? That
okay, so your point.
Like these civilizations did arise. They did write this stuff down. They put it in stone. They were wiped out. They existed for X amount of time. They interacted with cultures in this way. They influenced each other in such a way that we can really mathematically plot this, and even on a multiple systems approach, plot these stuff from archaeological, historical, fundamental physics. We can plot and plan and look at this stuff, right? This occurred.
Right.
This occurred. We can argue over how it occurred a little bit, but not too much, right?
I mean,
those people existed. Like, we can argue over how their existence really manifested. Did they live 1,000 years, or was it a family lineage that lasted 1,000 years? Did those stone buildings last 10,000 years? Did they last 5,000 years? We can have some argument over that, but we can't argue over their existence.
Okay, I see your point.
Right? It's stone. It was built by us at some point. So, this guy, when I say this, remember I say this guy, it could be an organization, a group of people. We can argue over that, but this organization has continued to rear its ugly head over mankind, which has accumulated to these wars and catastrophes, right?
Right.
And as we all know, if we use modern time as any sort of example, we got homeboys' eye on our money. We've got a system that this orgs him have talked about for millennia. They're still established and in place today, right?
Right.
So this ideology, this zeitgeist of the devil, is still here, and it's permeated our society for at least the last 50,000 years. This is undeniable fact of mankind. Understand?
Okay.
He's here. His presence is here. Now, where it starts to become fantasy fiction is, does our consciousness manifest this? Does he pop back up as like this lich from Tolkien mythology? Does he come back from Norse mythology? Does he come back from Greek mythology? What iteration of him is the truth? Is he clones? Is he a time traveler? Is he all of these things? Is he aliens? Is he a human? I think we could probably stick to the fact he's probably a human or a human-like entity. I think we could keep that in the realm of nonfiction, right? Because as soon as we describe him as like a god, then we get back into the fantasy fiction realm, right?
Yeah.
See what I mean? Like, it's really hard to get away from that.
Yeah, no, it is.
Isn't that cool? Isn't that really neat? I feel like it's.
It's fascinating. I don't know if it's neat per se.
I do think it's neat because it's a story of mankind too. It's our story. It's not the Eben's story. It's not the reptiles' story. It's our story.
Okay, fair enough.
I think there's something real exciting about this. I think it's like real exciting. I think it's real exciting. It's not the Bible. It's not Islam. It's not Judaism. It's not the Egyptians or the Greeks. It's all of it. It's the giants. It's the giant trees. It's Earth back when oxygen levels were far higher, and we had high man that did really weird stuff. Just
Right.
stuff that would look like magic to us today. But this stuff really happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. I want to know more. It's so intriguing.
If it indeed happened. I mean, I'm such a skeptic, though, that I don't believe anything at this point.
I actually sympathize with that particular ideology. I do. I'm a skeptic myself, but it's just being a complete skeptic isn't interesting to me, and I'm not gonna like stop at I just believe the story of Noah and everything before that, and like all of technology for before then. Like, okay, that's where I'm gonna like stop my belief system. Instead, I'd rather keep it in this state of limbo and just kind of absorb that zeitgeist, right? And let the scientists kind of allow what we can.
I'm with you there, and I agree with you on that, but at the same time, it's a little fantastical. It's a little hard to believe.
It's not. I just feel like some of that stuff is just not so fantastical. In fact, it's more believable to me than like we came from apes like 50,000 years ago. We evolved from these things, but then like the science doesn't line up, and it starts getting really confusing and goofy to me. So then it makes me step back and go, okay, maybe more like 2,000 years ago, we can start making claims. And then we look at a high society from ancient cultures, and you got these like big, beautiful stone structures all over the place, man. All over.
Sure.
On mountaintops, on like some of the most beautiful meadows, and what we've looked at scientifically, just even over the dogmatic stuff and the more recent fun stuff. Like it all kind of agrees on a lot of this. So where would you put your skepticism? Like if you were to think about it for a couple minutes, like where would
my skepticism everywhere? All of it.
That's that whole a priori thing where you can only believe like the last 100 years and like what you've learned verbally from your family members and stuff.
That's basically it. The only things I know to be true are the things I know to be true. Beyond that, it's all fascinating to me. And I agree that it's possible, maybe even probable. But at the same time, I can't put too much into it.
But why not just for fun? For like the thought experiment of fun. Why not entertain?
For thought experiments, absolutely. I'm here talking with you, and I agree. It's maybe even likely.
Okay, I like that. I'll take a win. I'll take a win.
But at the same time, I also have to concede that, I don't know for sure.
So no, of course. I can't know for sure either, man. It could all be
well, of course not. But
I do.
There's like a certain level of believability for some people, and
true, but
some people will take it for gospel. Some people will be like me and don't believe any of it 100%. They'll keep it in mind as an absolute possibility, maybe even likely, but at the same time, who knows? That's just kind of how it is, right?
So I think we're gonna leave it on this, and I'm just gonna say one last thing. I'll give you a moment to retort if you would like, but there's I don't remember the exact line. The movie Dogma. It's a Kevin Smith movie with Jay and Silent Bob, and God says, "There's no such thing as belief, only good ideas."
Yeah.
And aside from some like physical laws that help me like pull cheese out of the refrigerator and put it in my mouth, like everything else is just a good idea, right? Yeah. And in some sense, it's the like going into your refrigerator and pulling out the cheese and eating it.
110%.
So anything beyond that, like was picking up the cheese a good idea? So I like that. I like that a lot. And I try to stay curious and have a good time in life. And so it's behooved of me to practice what I preach and put on a good podcast where we get to have these thought experiments about what could be. Good ideas.
Sure.
Good ideas. Like, I don't have a hard belief on this. But some of the only hard beliefs I have on this are, like I said, like the law of entropy is pretty up in your face. I have to sweep this goddamn house every day. I know you do too. I know your dog shed everywhere.
Yes, I do.
Ain't that the truth, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's only a finite amount of truths.
Have you ever woken up in the morning and not had more dog hair than the day before?
Never.
Right, then we know the law of entropy is pretty freaking real.
Absolutely.
It's probably one of the best ideas you can hold.
Sure.
All right. That was a good podcast. I like that. I'm going to put us on break, and I think we're going to go play some Dark and Darker if we have the time. So, you have any closing comments, sir?
Aside from keep your options open. Keep your eyes open.
God, yeah, right? Stay curious.
That's about it. Stay curious. Stay flexible.
Right. And no, I will never take it easy on my kids in Smash Brothers or Mario Kart. Way too much fun. Peace out, party people. I'm going on break.